to the unit Non-Loom Techniques. This unit introduces skills needed for using non-loom techniques. Students will learn non-loom techniques, crochet, knitting, braiding and macrame through a combination of textual content and drawings. This unit comprises of 5 modules and a final review section that invites you to reflect on what you have learned. By the end of this unit, students will be able to identify the materials and tools required for non-loom techniques, understand the technique of crochet, understand the technique of knitting, understand the technique of braiding and understand the technique of macrame. This module gives an overview of different non-loom techniques and the different materials and tools used in these techniques. The first section introduces you to different non-loom techniques. Non-loom techniques refer to special fabric production techniques which are not made by weaving. These techniques require minimum tools and can be easily learnt and executed. These techniques are crochet, knitting, braiding and macrame. The word crochet comes from the French word croc, meaning a hook. The origins of this craft are difficult to trace. Crochet produces a looped fabric from one continuous length of yarn in a series of stitches that are cast using a hook. In crochet, a mesh-like structure is formed which can be circular, to and fro or in spirals. Crochet is often used for edging fabric. Knitting is another looping technique where loops are arranged horizontally and connected to the corresponding meshes of the previous row. Each loop is individually fixed with help of an accessory, mostly a set of eyeless needles, until the next row is formed. The earliest known pieces of knitting were discovered in Arabia, dating back to the 7th century AD. The work is extremely sophisticated and resembles the patterns of carpets and tiles of that time. The fashion for knitting spread throughout the world, and the silk knitted stockings popular in the south of Europe became the fashion for nobility in England after Elizabeth I got a pair as gift. Knitting became quite an important domestic and cottage craft in countries like England due to the predominance of wool as a staple fibre. Braiding involves interlacing of 3 or more threads to form flat or 3-dimensional structures that are called braids. The textiles created by this method are much more in length than in width or diameter. So, braiding is used to make narrow fabrics, cords, etc. The method used to braid varies according to the number of working strands and the pattern. A wide variety of materials can be used for the strands or braiding yarn. Braiding gives a very hard wearing surface as well as an interesting texture. Macrame is a form of textile that involves using knotting and looping. Its basic knots are the overhand knots and the flat or square knot. One may understand the development of macrame as a process gradually becoming complex, achieved by use of simple knots. The craft might have originated in Turkey or the Arab world, since it is believed that the word is derived from an Arabic word migrama, meaning fringe. In this section, you will learn about the materials and tools that are used in these techniques. These are the tools and materials required for crochet. Crochet hook and yarns. These hooks are available in a range of sizes which vary according to the thickness of the hook and should be sourced as per the thickness of the yarn to be crocheted. Apart from regular yarns, fancy yarns can also be used for decorative effects. These are the tools and material required for knitting. Knitting needles and yarns. A set of knitting needles which are eyeless needles with pointed tip. The needles are marked by a number according to the thickness and should be sourced according to the thickness of the yarn being used. The main material is yarn that is used for knitting. These are the tools and materials required for braiding: cords, fabric strips or fabric T-pins. Optionally, T-pins and a mounting board can be used. Fabric strips and T-pins are required to anchor the braiding yarns firmly for better working. Otherwise, braiding can also be done without any mounting. These are the tools and materials required for macrame. A foundation to mount macrame. This can be a board or two vertical rods to tighten the foundation cord of macrame. One can even use the opposite side of a chair. T-pins can be used to prevent slipping. This is optional. Cords and threads to work macrame. Any threads or cords can be used, but to begin learning, one should use a strong thread with a minimum texture and medium and even thickness. These are the common materials required for all non-loom techniques: a tape measure, a pair of scissors, needle, this is optional to mend or stitch the work, and thread. This module gives an overview of the crochet technique. The yarn used for crochet may be threaded through the fingers. This provides extra tension and control of the yarn and at the same time lends flexibility in the flow of movement from hand to hook. There are two ways of holding the crochet hook: the pencil position and the knife position. Be careful not to hold the hook too tightly or too close to the tip. For the pencil position, the crochet hook may be held like a pencil, with the thumb resting on the flat part of the hook and the index finger resting on the top of the hook. The first chain can be made by drawing the yarn from the left forefinger with the hook through the slip loop. For the knife position, the crochet hook can also be held in the palm of the hand like a knife, with the thumb resting on the flat part of the hook and the remaining fingers holding the hook from the underside. The first chain can be made by drawing the yarn from the left forefinger with the help of the hook through the slip loop. To begin crochet, a slip loop is the first crochet stitch placed on the hook and the yarn is then threaded through the left hand. Then both hands are brought together so that the yarn held through the left hand and the hook in the right hand are in proximity to make the subsequent crochet stitches. The slip loop is made by drawing a loop through the twists of the yarn with the help of a hook according to the following steps. First, leave a tail end of about 4 inches or 10 centimeters and then make a loop in the yarn by wrapping it once around the fingers of the left hand. Next, pass the tip of the crochet hook through the loop and over the ball end of the yarn with the hook facing down. Use the hook to catch the ball end of the yarn and pull it back through the loop. Keeping the new stitch on the hook, slip the loop from the left hand. Pull gently on the tail end of yarn to tighten the slip knot around the hook. Crochet always starts with a series of chain stitches. These stitches form the foundation row upon which the next row or round of work is made. One needs to keep an even gauge or tension to maintain the evenness of the chains so that they do not become too tight or loose. When learning the basic stitches, 20 chain stitches are sufficient. Follow these steps to create a series of chain stitches. First, place a slip knot on the hook and hold it in the right hand. With the yarn in the left hand, twist the hook first, under and then over the yarn to make a loop. Draw the hook with the looped yarn through the initial slip knot to form the chain stitch. The yarn should be kept at an even tension. The process may be repeated to work a row of chain stitches and ease the movement of the hook and the yarn. When working into the foundation chain, one can choose whether to place the hook into the top side, working over just one yarn, or into the lower side of the chain, working over 2 yarns. Sometimes a stronger foundation row is required for making products that require bearing more strain on the edges. For this, a double chain stitch row is worked in the following manner. First, make a slip loop and work 2 chain stitches. With the yarn at the back, insert the hook between the 2 halves of the first chain stitch, twist around the yarn and draw it through. This forms 2 loops on the hook. Twist the hook around the yarn and draw through both the loops. This forms a double chain. One can continue this way to form more double stitches, each time inserting the hook into the left side of the stitch just made. This is a double chain stitch. After completing the work, the yarn has to be finished off properly to avoid any raveling later. This is also referred to as casting off. Follow these steps to finish off. After the final stitch, cut the yarn and pull it through the last loop on the hook. Pull it tight to close the loop. Thread the working end of the yarn into a sewing needle and darn it neatly at the back of the work. Counting stitches in crochet is more difficult than in knitting, since the stitches are not left on the hook. The sample that is displayed here is worked in double crochet. Each stitch is numbered to show how to count the stitches. Counting treble stitches is easier because each treble forms one upright or post which is counted as a single stitch. A chain stitch counts as 1, and if it lies between 2 trebles, it should be counted as 3 stitches. Crochet stitches are always made in the same way. The texture of some stitches may differ according to whether they are worked flat or in a circle. All first row stitches are worked through the back half of the chain stitch foundation row. On the following rows, unless specified otherwise, all the stitches are worked through both halves of the top of the stitches below, and the hook is always inserted from front to back. Refer to the pattern abbreviations for reading the instructions. Follow these steps to make slip stitches. First, make a foundation row of chains. Insert the hook through the back of the second chain from the hook. Twist the yarn around the hook, read as YRH, and draw through the 2 loops now on the hook, making a slip stitch or SS. Continue working into the next and following chains. At the end of the row, make 1 turn chain, turn the work and insert the hook through the back half of the first slip stitch. Continue like this for all the following rows. Follow these steps to make a double crochet. First, make a foundation row of chains. Insert the hook through the back of the second chain from the hook, turn yarn around the hook and draw through. With 2 loops now on hook, yarn around the hook and draw through both loops, making a DC or double crochet. Continue working DC into the next and following chains to the end of the row. At the end of the row, make 1 turn chain, turn the work and insert the hook through both halves of the first stitch in the row below to make the first DC. Follow these steps to make a half treble. Make a foundation row of chains, yarn around the hook and then insert hook through the back of the third chain from the hook. Yarn around the hook and draw through. There are now 3 loops on the hook. Yarn around the hook and pull through all 3 loops, making a half treble or HTR. Continue working treble into every chain. At the end of the row, make 2 turn chains, turn the work and make first half treble into the first stitch in the row below. Continue this for all the following rows. Follow these steps to make a treble. Make a foundation row of chains, yarn around hook and insert the hook through the back of the 5th chain from the hook. Yarn around the hook and draw through 3 loops on the hook. Yarn around the hook and draw through the first 2 loops. There are now 2 loops on the hook. Yarn around the hook and draw through these 2 loops to complete the treble. Continue to make treble till the end of the row. Then make 3 turn chains, turn the work and make the first treble into the second stitch in the row below. Follow these steps to make a double treble. Make a foundation row of chains, yarn around the hook twice and insert the hook into the back of the 6th chain from the hook. Yarn around the hook and draw through. There are now 4 loops on the hook. Yarn around the hook and draw through the first 2 loops. There are now 3 loops on the hook. Yarn around the hook and draw through the first 2 loops. Yarn around the hook and draw through the remaining 2 loops to complete the double treble. Continue to make double treble till the end of the row. Then make 4 turn chains, turn the work and make the first double treble into the second stitch in the row below. Variations to basic stitches are made by inserting the hook into different parts of the stitches below and manipulating the yarn in different ways. Follow these steps to make a triple treble. Make a foundation row of chains, yarn around the hook 3 times and insert the hook through the back of the 7th chain from the hook. Yarn around the hook and draw through. There are now 5 loops on the hook. Yarn around the hook and draw through the first 2 loops. Repeat this process 3 more times. Continue to make treble till the end of the row. Then make 5 turn chains, turn the work and make first treble into the second stitch in the row below. To save space, all crochet instructions are written with symbols and abbreviations. These are easy to follow and each pattern gives a key to the instructions. This table displays the codes that are used commonly. These abbreviations have been used in describing the basic stitches as well. These are the most common symbols in crochet patterns. The net ground is made with chain and double crochet stitches. First, make a number of chains divisible by 4 plus 1 extra. Turn the row. Make 1 DC into the 10th chain from the hook. Make 5 chains and then miss 3 chains and work 1 double crochet into the next chain. Repeat this step till the end and end with 5 chains. Turn the work for the second row and make 1 double crochet into the 5th chain in the loop. Work 5 chains and 1 DC into the next loop and repeat this step till the end. End it by working 5 chains and then turn. Repeat the row 2 throughout. This is a finished sample of simple net ground. Having learnt about the technique of crochet, let us now move on to the technique of knitting. Knitting begins with 2 needles and a ball of yarn. This demonstration is given for right-handed knitters. Left-handed knitters should reverse the instructions for left and right or follow the diagrams in front of a mirror in reverse. A slip loop is the first stitch to be made in knitting and is the foundation for all subsequent stitches. To make a slip loop, follow these instructions. First, wrap the yarn twice around 2 fingers. Pull a loop through the twisted yarn on the fingers with the knitting needle. Pull both ends of yarn to tighten the slip loop. Putting the first row of stitches into the knitting needle is known as casting on. Among the many methods used to cast on the stitches, the most common one is a single cast on. The edge produced by the single cast on method is loose and soft. Follow these instructions to work a single cast on. Hold the needle with the slip loop in the right hand. Wrap the working end of the yarn around the left thumb and hold it in the left palm to begin casting on. Put the needle through the yarn behind the thumb. With the needle, lift the yarn from the thumb and slide the new stitch to the slip loop. Pull the working end of the yarn to secure the new stitch. Repeat these steps until the required number of stitches have been cast on. Follow these instructions to make a double cast on. Hold the loose end of the yarn in the left hand as before. Put the working yarn over the left forefinger and hold both ends together in the palm. Next, pull the needle through the thumb loop as before. Then put the needle behind the yarn on the left forefinger. Draw the needle and yarn through to make the stitch. Release the yarn from the thumb and pull both ends to secure the new stitch. There are many ways of holding needles and yarn. Some methods make knitting faster, but every knitter works out one's comfortable personal style. Threading the working end of yarn through the fingers controls tension and helps produce a firm, even fabric. The working yarn is held in the right hand over the needles. The right forefinger wraps the yarn around the needle. Hold the right needle like a pen for light work with short needles. Thread the working yarn through the fingers of the right hand in either of the ways shown in this image. This is the basic knit stitch. Follow these instructions to make a basic knit stitch. With the yarn to the back, insert the right needle from right to left through the front of the first stitch on the left hand needle. Bring the working yarn up and over the right needle. Draw the right needle and the yarn through the stitch, discarding the stitch on the left needle, and at the same time forming a new stitch on the right needle. Continue like this, knitting into the next and every subsequent stitch on the left needle until the end. When the first row of knitting is complete, turn the work around and take the right needle carrying the stitches in the left hand. The empty needle is held in the right hand, ready to begin a new row of knitting. The back of the work now faces the knitter. When every row is knitted back and forth on two needles, a fabric structure called garter stitch is formed as shown in this image. To make the basic purl stitches, follow these steps. With the yarn at the front of the work, insert the right needle from right to left through the front of the first stitch on the left needle. Bring the working yarn up over the right needle. Draw the right needle and the yarn through the stitch, discarding the stitch on the left needle and at the same time forming a new stitch on the right needle. Continue like this, exchanging needles at the end of each row. This is a basic stitch. When the first row of a purl stitch is complete, turn the work around and begin a new row. If the purl row is succeeded by a knit row and the two are worked alternatively, a stocking stitch is formed. When every row is purled, a garter stitch is formed in the same way as knitting every row. The fabric shown here is formed from rows of knit stitches and rows of purl stitches. Stocking stitch is made by knitting the first and every alternate row and purling the second and every alternate row. Casting off is the removing of the finished piece from the needles. Depending on the stitch on the row, the casting off is completed. To cast off a knit row, follow these instructions. Knit the first two stitches and insert the tip of the left needle through the first stitch. Lift the first stitch over the second stitch and discard it. Continue discarding like this to the end of the row and the last stitch. Cut the yarn, slip the end through the stitch and pull it tight to fasten off. The method to cast off a purl row is exactly the same as for a knit row. Purl the first two stitches and insert the left needle through the first stitch. Lift it over the second stitch and discard. When casting off in rib, knit stitches are knitted and purl stitches are purled. This chart gives knitting patterns in alphanumerical codes which are easily understood. The instructions give a pattern row by row for which standard abbreviations are used. Many different and richly textured patterns can be made simply by combination of the basic knit and purl stitches. We will now look at some patterns that can be easily followed and practiced. You may experiment with innumerable variations in the sequence of the knit rows. To knit a 1 by 1 rib pattern, first work in a multiple of 2 stitches plus 1. In the row 1, knit 1 and purl 1 every alternate stitch and repeat till the end. In the end, make 1 knit stitch. In the second row, purl 1 stitch. Next, knit 1 and purl 1 alternatively and repeat throughout. Now, repeat rows 1 and 2. To knit a basket weave, first make multiples of 8 stitches plus 5. In the row 1, the right side of the work, knit throughout. For second row, knit 5 stitches, then purl 3, knit 5 and repeat the step throughout. In the third row, make 5 purl stitches, then knit 3, then purl 5 and repeat this step throughout. In the fourth row, repeat the second row throughout. In fifth row, knit all the stitches. In the sixth row, knit first stitch, then make 3 purl stitches, knit 5 stitches and repeat till the end. End the row with 1 knit stitch. In the seventh row, purl 1 stitch. Next, make 3 knits and 5 purl stitches and repeat this step throughout and end the row with 1 purl stitch. In the 8th row, repeat row 6. Now, repeat rows 1 to 8 to continue the pattern. While making any knitting pattern, one has to constantly change between knit stitch and purl stitch. To change from knit stitch to purl stitch, take the yarn to the front of the work to start the purl stitch from a knit stitch. To change from purl stitch to knit stitch, take the yarn to the back of the work to start the knit stitch after a purl. Now that you have learned the different techniques of knitting, here are some important tips to remember. When knitting, always read the complete pattern instructions before beginning to work. Use long needles if you are knitting a pattern with a large number of stitches. Never leave off work in the middle of a row, as this will stitch the knitting and make it easier for stitches to drop off. If short needles are overloaded, the stitches will slip off. Now, let us move on to the technique of braiding. Braiding or plaiting techniques can be used to make many different braids, from the regular 3-strand braid to the 6-strand circular braid. The simpler braids can be worked with either cords or fabrics, but the more complicated ones are easier to work in string-like cords that have a firm twist and no stretch. Braids are used to make belts, bracelets, replacement handles as well as accessories that are stitched to clothes. Follow these instructions for 3-strand braiding. Tie 3 strands together with an overhand knot and pin it to a soft board with a T-pin. Take the strand on the left over the top of the strand in the middle. Take the strand in the right over the top of the strand in the middle. Continue like this alternately, taking the strand from the left and then the strand from the right over the one in the middle. The braid should be pulled tightly while working. Follow these instructions for 6-strand circular braiding. Take 6 strands together with an overhand knot. Number them from 1 to 6. Hold the work in the left hand and arrange the strands as shown. Work anti-clockwise and take strand 1 up over strands 2 to 3. Now take the strand 3 up over strands 1 and 4. Continue like this, taking the strand immediately behind the newly positioned one and moving it anti-clockwise over the 2 strands in front of it. Tie the strands together, pin it to a board and number them from the left. Work them over one another, following the numbers through so that their order changes as shown as per each type of braid or cord. In each case, the broken line shows the end of the basic sequence. After this, repeat the same movements from the beginning. Eventually, each strand will return to its original position. Here are various types of braiding. Braiding with fabric is not as straightforward as working with strings or cord, since there are several stages of preparation before the actual plaiting can begin. Any used material should be washed and new ones should be pre-shrunk before plaiting. The working strands are made by cutting the fabric into bias strips. These are usually 1 to 1.5 inches or 2.5 to 4 centimeters wide, although this also depends on the width of the plait one plans to make. Follow these steps to join the strips together. To join strips together, cut diagonally across the bias on the straight grain. Place the two strips together, matching them up on the diagonal as shown in the diagram. Sew along the join with back stitch. Press the seams open, trim off corners and unfold the pieces into a continuous length and trim off any surplus material. Follow these steps to fold the strips. Lay the strips out flat with the right side faced downward. Fold the strip sides in the middle as shown. Fold them in half again down the center line. Tack them into place if you want to produce a rounded effect, or press them lightly with an iron if you want the finished plait to look more flat. To secure a 3-strand braiding, the first thing to do is to secure the strands together at the top before beginning the braid. We will look at 3 different methods to do this. This is the first method. For a 3-strand plait, join 2 strips together. Slot a 3rd strip into the fold of the other 2 at the center. Secure it with a pin or a few stitches. Begin plaiting as shown. The left half of the 2 strip becomes the first strand of the plait, the vertical strip the second, and the right half of the top strip the third. In the second method, thread the strands in sequence onto a safety pin as shown. In this method, lay the strands next to each other and secure them along the top with tacking stitches. Plaited fabrics are worked in exactly the same way as plaited string or cord. However, by varying the technique slightly, it is possible to produce either a rounded or a flattened effect on the finished plait. In both cases, it is essential to mount the tops of the strands firmly to the working surface before beginning the plaiting. To make a round braid, work in the normal way, treating each strand as if it were a simple cord. Keep the open edges to the right throughout. To produce even fatter, rounder plaits, make each strand bulkier by linking it with another strip of fabric before folding it over and beginning to plait. Work in the normal way, but this time fold the strands over in sharp creases at the outer edge of the plait. This will guarantee that they lie flat. Start off by getting the open edge of the fabric strands or to the right. If this is done, you will find that as the work progresses, the open edges always face up towards the top of the braiding. An alternative method of joining plaits in a straight line is to work them into one another as they are being braided. Work the plaits side by side in between loops on each plait. Pull the strands through the loop of the adjoining plait with a crochet hook as shown. The butting method is a method of joining together the ends of 2 finished plaits. It is worked by splicing together the strands of each plait so that the join is not visible when finished. First, open out the ends of the strands on both plaits. Attach one strand from the top plait to this matching strand from the bottom plait by stitching them together along the diagonal joint. Fold the joint strands back over again in the usual way. Repeat for 2 of the other strands, keeping to the pattern. Finally, join the last 2 strands, plaiting them into the others so that the pattern follows through correctly. Finishing is done after the plait has been worked to the required length by darning back and securing the ends of the strands. Thread the ends of the strand back into the loops of the work. Secure them by stitching over the ends, keeping the stitches out of sight. Finally, this module will give an overview of the technique of macrame. Macrame work has to be set up before beginning. The working thread must be hung vertically and supported securely. The length of the thread and the number of working threads depends on the end product and needs to be carefully measured and cut. As a rough guide, 4 times the length of the finished product is required for each working thread, that is 8 times for each thread before it is doubled and mounted. However, some knots take up more thread than others, and the thicker the thread, the more will be needed. The threads can be set up either onto a foundation cord on working surface or directly on the final product, if possible. For example, on a curtain rod if a macrame curtain is being worked out. For learning purposes, 20 inches threads can be taken to begin macrame. When the work is not mounted directly onto a piece of fabric or a solid object, a foundation cord is required onto which the first knots can be mounted. Once the work has been completed, it can either be retained and the ends fastened off, or it can be removed. A double foundation cord, 2 threads used together as one, is used for larger mounting knots and added strength if it is retained after completing the work. An overhand knot can be tied at each end of the foundation cord and pinned to the working surface. The macrame mounting knot, also known as lark's head knot, is used to position the working threads onto the foundation cord. Follow these steps to make a mounting knot. First, fold each thread in half. Next, place the loop of the folded thread in front of the foundation cord. Then fold it over and behind the cord and tuck the 2 ends through the loop. Finally, pull it tight to secure the knot in position on the foundation cord. A row of double mounting knots produces a wider piece of work with more space between the working threads. To make a double mounting knot, first work a reversed single mounting knot as shown in the image. Then work a half hitch over the foundation cord on either side of the first knot using the ends of the working threads. Pull the knot tight to secure it in position on the foundation cord. Half hitch forms one of the most basic techniques of macrame, and most of the knots are built around it either vertically or horizontally. It is a simple movement which is easy to master, and it can be worked either clockwise or anti-clockwise with one or more thread around a central core. It is also sometimes known as a simple knot, the cording knot, the tatting knot, clove hitch or buttonhole knot. To make an anti-clockwise half hitch, use the right hand thread as a core and keeping it taut, knot the left hand thread over it, behind and through to the front between the core and itself. This forms one anti-clockwise half hitch. This process can be continued to form a spiral that twists to the right. To make a clockwise half hitch, use the left hand thread as a core and keeping it taut, knot the right hand thread over it, behind and through to the front between the core and itself. This forms one clockwise half hitch. This process can be continued to form a spiral that twists on left. To work a single knotted chain, work an anti-clockwise half hitch by knotting the left hand thread around the right hand core, and then a clockwise half hitch by knotting the right hand thread round the left hand core. Half hitches may be continued alternately to form a flat braid. To work a double knotted chain, use 4 threads divided into 2 groups of 2 threads each. Work each pair of threads together as if they were one thread and form alternate anti-clockwise and clockwise half hitches in the same way as for single knotted chain. A row of horizontal cording is used to secure mounting knots in position. Cording is done by working each thread in double half hitch over a horizontal core. The core, called the leader, can either be the first working thread or a separately introduced thread. Here are the steps to make a horizontal cording. Use the first working thread as a leader, start at the left and knot the second hanging thread around the leader in half hitch. Continuing with the same hanging thread, work another half hitch over the leader. This forms a double half hitch and will secure the knot in place. Move on the next hanging thread. Work it over the same leader in another double half hitch. Draw it tight and make sure that it is positioned as closely as possible to the previous knot. Continue the same way to the end of the row, working each hanging thread over the leader in a double half hitch. Work the second row from right to left using the same leader. Diagonal cording is worked in exactly the same way as horizontal cording, except that the leader is held diagonally downwards, either to the left or to the right. These are the steps for making diagonal cording. Use the first working thread held diagonally as the leader. Work the second thread over it in a double half hitch. Counting down the row, working each hanging thread in double half hitches over the leader. Work second diagonal row in the same way, but use second working thread as the new leader. Work the first half of threads over leaders, slanting diagonally down to the right. Work the second half so that they slant down to the left. Follow these steps to make joined diagonal rows. Work as shown in the image, but cross leaders in the center. Then work the second diagonals so that original leaders become working threads in the opposite group. The opposite diagonal rows are joined together in the center after finishing. In vertical cording, the working thread becomes the core and the leader works the half hitches. Work 2 rows of horizontal cording. At the start of the third row, hold the first working thread taut and knot the leader around it in a vertical double half hitch. Take the leader behind the next working thread and work another double half hitch over it as shown. Continue to the end of the row. Work the next row in the same way, but from right to left with an anti-clockwise knot. This is the simplest knot and can be worked on 1, 2 or several threads. It is useful for preventing the ends of threads from fraying and for decoration, as it produces a bead-like effect when done carefully. A pin may be placed in the center of the knot to fix it before tightening. Displayed here is a working of an overhand knot in double threads and a finished knot. Displayed here is the working of a single overhand knot around a core and a finished knot. The flat knot, also known as Solomon's knot, is worked with 3 or more threads, though 4 is usual and used to make a braid or open meshes and solid fabrics. The knot is formed by working the 2 outer threads around a central core. Any additional threads go into the core. Follow these steps to create a flat knot. Holding the core threads taut, take the left hand thread over to the right, threading it behind the core threads and in front of the right hand thread. Take the right thread over to the left, threading it in front of the core threads and into the loop formed by the left hand thread. Take the right hand thread over to the left, threading it behind the core and in front of the left hand thread. Take the left hand thread over to the right, threading it in front of the core and into the loop of the right hand thread. Finally, tighten the threads to lock the knot in place and continue down the row. Alternating flat knots is a method of working along a group of several hanging threads and forming horizontal rows of flat knots. The alternating pattern is made by forming the flat knots over different groups of 4 threads. The knots can either be worked close together to give a solid fabric or spaced apart for an open mesh. Both techniques look good if decreased to a point. For closed work, work a horizontal row of 4 flat knots, each knot formed over 4 working threads. On the second row, regroup the threads so that they are 2 separate spare in each end. Work a flat knot on each new group of 4 threads, pulling it tight so that it lies close under the knots in the previous row. On the third row, regroup the threads as for the first row. For open work, work in exactly the same way as for the closed method, but leave more space between each row of flat knots so that an open mesh effect is produced. Braids of simple flat knots can be varied to produce much more complex and decorative braids and spirals. One can form a braid into a spiral by repeating only one half of the flat knot. The direction in which the spiral twists will vary according to whether the first half or the second half of the flat knot is used. To form this knotted edge braid on the simple flat knot braid, work an overhand knot on each of the outer threads in between the flat knots. For a picot-edged braid, work a braid of flat knots so that a space is left between each separate knot. When one pushes the knots up together, the outer threads form into decorative loops or picots. If a working thread turns out to be too short, a new piece can be joined in. To do this, introduce the new length of the thread into the core of a flat knot or vertical cording knot. Work the knot over the join and take the ends to the back. Lay the new thread length of the thread along beside the leader in a row of horizontal cording. Work the knots over the joint and take the ends to the back. If a piece of macrame ends in a fringe, trim the loose ends of thread and stitch or hem to finish. Turn the loose ends of thread over the back of the work. However, instead of darning them, secure them firmly at the back of the work with a few small stitches as shown, using a needle and fine but strong thread. Cut the loose ends to a length of about 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters and sew them onto the side of a strip of seam or bias binding as shown. When you have finished stitching right across the width of the work, fold the binding over and sew the remaining edges to the back of the macrame as shown. You have now reached the end of this unit. To summarize, in this unit you have learned the 4 non-loom techniques: crochet, knitting, braiding and macrame. Thank you.